Welcome and thank you again for joining us at Bloomerang Academy, where we are talking about Bloomerang and DonorSearch, uncover the secret giving power of your database. Joining us today is Kirst Wantland. She has had a wealth of experience in the nonprofit sector, in addition to having a master's degree in nonprofit management and leadership. When she's not working, she enjoys photography, camping, reading, and spending time with her husband and her pets. Maybe some of them might make a surprise appearance and grace us with their presence today. Who knows? But welcome, Kirst. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Diana. It's definitely likely that you're going to see our 4-month-old kitten, dog, and the other cat probably pop around in the background. So definitely take a look, be watched back there. So awesome. I will start sharing my screen and we will get started here. Okay. So again, just thank you for taking some time this morning. We know how busy this time of year is in the nonprofit sector. So thank you all so much for taking a moment to learn a little bit about wealth screening in general, and then how you can utilize the power of wealth screening already with your Bloomerang database. So today, an agenda, quickly kind of what we will cover, some questions we're going to answer. What is wealth screening? When I was new to the nonprofit sector, I didn't quite understand what that question was, what that meant, what information can we look for. So we're going to answer questions like what it is, the benefits of it. We're going to learn how to utilize wealth screening with Bloomerang in general. And then we're also going to learn about some particular tools of wealth screening with DonorSearch, who is Bloomerang's wealth screening partner. We're going to learn about the batch screen, different other tools that we can use with DonorSearch. And then we're going to tie all that information back into Bloomerang and see how we can use it in kind of like live time. Like we can look at the results of a batch screen, and then we can also use this information to segment and prioritize some of our solicitations. So quick recap, we're going to learn about wealth screening and its benefits. We're going to learn about the tools in Bloomerang, and then we're going to put that stuff to work. So a couple of learning objectives. Again, this will be a little bit repetitive from what I just said, but I really want to harness that we're going to understand the purpose and power of wealth screening. We're going to understand when it's beneficial to do a wealth screen. And then we're going to learn how to utilize this batch screen data in our Bloomerang database so we can start segmenting and prioritizing a little bit better. So what is wealth screening? That question is kind of ambiguous, right? Like, what does wealth mean in this sense? So when we're looking at wealth screening tools, wealth screening is a way for organizations to research donors' past giving history as well as their current assets to see how much a donor is able to give and help determine what an organization should ask. So a lot of wealth screening tools, they're going to look at past giving transactions, their current assets. So that can be things like real estate holdings, stock investments, etc. And then that's going to give organizations good insight into what their wealth potential is. DonorSearch has a catchphrase of sorts that notes past giving history is the best indicator of future giving. Tons of research on this. So that's why wealth screening is super important in general, because it's going to be the best indicator of what that person can contribute to your organization. So we're still talking about wealth screening in general, right? Like, why is this so important? It allows you to make targeted solicitations based on their actual capacity to give. So it's looking at income, it's looking at what their past history was. So it's making assumptions based on what they've already contributed to organizations, which may or may not be your organization. And then the other one too is uncovering donors in your database with a large capacity. So this could be people that have a volunteer relationship with your organization, and DonorSearch is saying, hey, they have capacity to give, let's start soliciting them. And then it can be other people who you already know are high capacity donors, but it's just giving you more insight into maybe the other causes that they support, and kind of helps back back that ask, right? So it gives you a little bit more tools in your toolbox to say, yes, this is a confident ask for my organization from this particular donor. And then the last bit is it instantly enhances the data in your database. When you do a batch screen, which is one of the tools we're going to talk about in just a moment, something like that, or even just if you're using Prospect View and you're going in and you're researching donors one-on-one, this is instantly going to enhance the data in your database. It gives you more points of looking at their history, seeing what DonorSearch is rating as someone with a high capacity or maybe someone with a lower capacity, and it shows you why. So it instantly enhances the data in your database, already shows you the information to make targeted solicitations, and then it can also uncover people in your database that you already have a relationship with that maybe have a higher capacity than you thought. Okay, so DonorSearch is Bloomerang's wealth screening partner. It is something that you have access to in your database already. Generally, that generosity meter. So when you're looking at the screen, that bottom left, that is the generosity meter. So it goes from a range of cold to on fire. And what this is looking at is the donor's propensity to make a large gift, again, looking at that capacity in their past giving transactions. So this is something that you don't have to pay for. That general generosity scan you can use in reports. You can use it to target particular people, use it for list segmentation. So that's something that's in there already. You don't have to pay an additional fee to make that, turn on of sorts, right? So there's another part of DonorSearch that you can pay for certain add-ons. We'll talk a little bit about just what those are so you can understand maybe what your organization has or what your organization could use for going forward. So the first one is going to be that prospect view. So that's where you can look at an individual constituent's record and you can say, show me this information in DonorSearch, the same way that you can see that button is blue and it says view in DonorSearch. With prospect view, you can look up an individual record. I'm going to Joe Schmo's record and I'm going to say view Joe Schmo in DonorSearch. And then what that's going to show me is charitable giving table. It's going to show you his metrics. It's going to show you all the information about him. That information is not automatically imported into your database. That is going to be something that you can create a custom field for in Bloomerang, and you can store that information, but it is you doing that legwork and saying, I'm going to look at Joe Schmo. Here's what I find that's important about Joe Schmo. I'm going to go log this back in my Bloomerang database. So that's that first level of prospect view. The second level, or the second service, I would say, is something called a batch screen. This is like a one-time service. You can do it more than once, but generally it is a one-time service that's going to say, hey, scanned these 2,000 people or however many people you have in your database that's applicable. Scan all these people, pull over these metrics, and then they'll be already accessible in your database. That's something our data services team will run for you. That's not something you have to do the legwork on. It's really determining that criteria of people that you want included or everyone that's applicable. And then it pulls all those metrics back into Bloomerang. And I'm saying all those metrics, but we're going to get to the metrics in just a second so you can understand what fields are included in the batch screen. So quick recap on the batch screen, that's saying, hey, this group of people, pull over those metrics. It's already accessible into Bloomerang. Bloomerang does that legwork for you. Now, the last sort of independent offering here, online suite of tools. So this is something that you can access through Bloomerang or through DonorSearch, and then that allows you to find new prospects. So maybe it's people in your area, people that you're looking for based on previous giving. You can search philanthropic history, habits of corporations and foundations. So it's not just individuals, to see if you can find new donors to support your cause. So quick recap on all three of those DonorSearch offerings. Prospect view is the ability to look at an individual in Bloomerang or in DonorSearch, pull over any information that you want manually from DonorSearch into Bloomerang, you can store that information on their record. The batch screen is going to be a general screen where they're going to pull over metrics. Bloomerang's going to do that for you. Everything will be imported back into your database. And then the online suite of tools is a tool that you can find new donors with based on similarities in like giving history. Maybe they reside in your area. Maybe they support a cause similar to yours. Okay, so we understand now the importance of wealth screening and some of the tools that we can start to utilize and take advantage of that wealth screening capacity. But when should we do it, right? That's the big question, is like, okay, my organization's new, or maybe we don't have a really large organization, but it's valuable to organizations of all sizes. It just kind of depends on when. So for the first time, Bloomerang recommends doing it for like a capital campaign. You have a specific fundraising goal. You're trying to raise a particular amount. You're going to want to target your donors based on solicitation areas. So that's a great time to do it, is during a capital campaign. Similarly, with large fundraising events, you have a max fundraising goal that you're trying to reach. So that's another great one too. And then generally, just to get more insight for your annual fund contributions. So three great areas to do it for the first time. And then how often Bloomerang recommends is doing that every year or two, or during a large influx of new donors. Let's say your organization has exponential growth, which is ultimately what we want for you, and now only about half your database has a batch screen. That'd be a good time to be like, okay, let's get everybody up to par. Let's have all the same metrics. That way you can really look into these folks in your donor database and see what their capacity is, start soliciting them a little bit more with a little bit more intention. Okay. The people that can be included in a batch screen is anyone with a first name and a last name and a valid US address. So the batch screen is only going to look for individuals. It's not going to look for organizations or foundations. So just those individual folks, and they have to have a first name, last name, and valid US address. Okay, so where does the information live then? Let's say I've done the batch screen and now I want to start utilizing some of that information. Where does it live? So this is just a quick screenshot of an organization's record in your Bloomerang database. So you've got the different tabs here. Oh, let me go back here. We've got the different tabs of the summary, the profile, timeline, and relationships tab. On the summary tab, we have a generosity box. So that's that same generosity box, whether you're paying for an additional DonorSearch license or not, you will have that generosity rating. Now, if you pay for the batch screen or have done one before, your button will look a little different. It'll say view generosity details, and it will take you to a landing page, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But if you haven't done a batch screen yet, your generosity button will just say view in DonorSearch. So the fields included in the batch screen, this is going to be that landing page that says view generosity details when you're on the profile. So we'll talk a little bit about these fields. We'll start with profile accuracy. That's essentially DonorSearch's stamp of approval saying like, yes, the information that is included on this person's record really belongs to this person. So say, for example, you have someone that you work with or a donor in your organization, and their name is John Doe, and his profile accuracy might be kind of medium, right? Because there's a lot of John Does in your area, or it's a very common name, and DonorSearch might not know if the John Doe's gifts to an organization belong to the John Doe in your database. So what we're looking for when we look for profile accuracy is we want to see anything with a high, because we know that it's kind of like DonorSearch's stamp of approval saying like, yes, this is Kirst Wantland's gift records, right? So we're looking profile accuracy that's high, that's good. Annual fund likelihood and major gift likelihood. It is what it sounds like, right? It's a rating on what that person's more likely to give towards. So DonorSearch is going to look at the number of transactions, the individual amount in a single transaction, the frequency of transactions, whether someone's giving like every 2 months or every other year. They're also going to look at what kind of gifts they're giving. So where that source record is from. If they are giving constantly towards an annual fund, that's going to make their annual fund likelihood higher. Okay, so something to think about when you do a batch screen is which way you're going to cultivate someone towards. The annual fund likelihood and the major gift likelihood do play an important part in that. Your largest charitable gift, that is going to be the amount in a single transaction that DonorSearch can find. So keep in mind that DonorSearch is finding their records from publicly available sources. So if your organization doesn't publish an annual report, or let's say Joe Schmo gives anonymously, then DonorSearch isn't going to be able to find that anonymous gift and tie it back to his record. So that might not be entirely accurate, right? So think of that largest charitable gift as what DonorSearch can certify as saying, yes, that is definitely his largest charitable gift. Now, the wealth capacity, generally this comes over with a range. For my test database screenshot here, it says unable to rate, but what the wealth capacity is looking at, it's looking at like their past giving transactions, and then it's also looking at a calculation of their current assets. And then what that comes over is a 10% estimation of their net worth. So DonorSearch recommends that you can use this range to strive for that amount in a single gift or in a 5-year pledge, 2% per year. So we'll look at some examples where we do have data for wealth capacity, but that is a calculation on 10% of their estimated net worth. And that's usually what your organization can strive for from a major gift from that organization or from that individual in a single amount or in a 5-year pledge. Now, the has business affiliation, that's usually looking for if someone is like a C-level executive in an organization or in a company, or if someone registers as a business owner. More often than not, you'll find those for these. That's pretty normal. But if you know someone's an owner of a business or it's registered on their taxes, right, that's the kind of stuff DonorSearch will find that will flip that flag to yes. Okay. So before we get into seeing some of this data live and seeing what we can look at, I want to highlight the difference between the generosity score and the engagement score. They're both kind of those thermometer meters. They both go from cold to on fire, but like, what is the difference? So that generosity score is going to rate on a donor's propensity to give a $5,000 gift or not. Just to highlight that DonorSearch considers a major gift $5,000 and above. That may not be true to your organization. I work with organizations every day at Bloomerang, and some of them are brand new, some of them have been in business for years. And a major gift, some organizations consider $250 a major gift, and another organization I just worked with last week considered $75,000 a major gift, right? So just keep in mind that DonorSearch's threshold for a major gift is around $5,000. So this is rating on their propensity to give that gift, whether it be their current assets, their capacity, or it's going to also look at their past transactions, their past giving history. Now, the difference with engagement level is going to be everything that's in your Bloomerang database. So this is going to be looking at, yes, their individual transactions, whether that donor has upgraded or downgraded in giving year over year. It's also going to look at soft credits. It's going to look at communication preferences for that individual constituent's record. And then whether that constituent initiated that touch point or the organization did. So there's a difference between a constituent reaching out to you and saying, hey, let's schedule a meeting, or you sending a mass email to that constituent. So all those things affect the engagement level. That's why it's so important to track them in your Bloomerang database, because the more that you track in your engagement level, the more accurate it's going to be. So Generosity score is going to be that publicly available giving record rating of sorts, right? This may or may not include your organization based on if DonorSearch has found those records or not. And then your engagement level is going to look at just what's in your Bloomerang database. So we are going to use this data and all the stuff we just learned about why well screening is important. We're going to use some batch screen information, and then we're going to segment this stuff in reports to see how we can use this live. Some of the ones that we're going to build out is generally just going to be that master batch screen details report. That's just going to show you all the information that you have obtained from the batch screen. We're also going to look at major gift prospects. So we're going to show constituents to consider for the major gift asks or the major gift pipeline. Right, and like keep in mind that what we're looking at, right, is all data that we've tracked or that DonorSearch has found. So don't take the human element out of this stuff. If you know Grandpa Joe like really loves your organization and has planned a bequest, don't exclude him from this pipeline, right? It's really a starting point to kind of jump off into your research, prioritize who you're asking, segmenting, etc. The next one we're going to look at is Cultivation List. So this report can show high capacity donors in your database with low engagement. So it's going to show that high capacity, low engagement in your database. One-time donors, that's a report for any constituents in your database that only have one transaction for whatever reason. So we're going to add some metrics in there for the ones that were included in the batch screen and decide which way to cultivate them. And then if we get time, we're going to look at that first-time donors report. So we're going to see first-time donors in whatever time frame we decide, and then we're going to see if any of them have batch screen details. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to our database here, and we are going to get started. Okay. So we're going to head to our report section, and I will do my best to verbalize kind of what I'm doing in some report logic, but do feel free to check out a lot of our other Academy resources specifically on reporting. So if I go a little too quick, feel free to check out some of our other resources on reporting. So I'm going to build a report from scratch. The first one we're going to do is that master batch screen details. So we are going to see a list of constituents. So we're just going to click a constituent report. And now the contact information is not terribly important for this one, so I'm just going to remove that there. We can click on any column header and click delete. And then we're going to click our green add filter button, and we're going to search for generosity. So when we're looking at our filter section here, we're in a report. Generosity is going to be that individual score of whether it be cold to on fire. And then the generosity details are going to be what's included in the batch screen. So those metrics that we just talked about. So right now, most people in the database, if they have a first name, last name, and a US address, are going to have a generosity rating. But I only want to see records that have that batch screen information. Now, if we're running these reports pretty close to when our batch screen was completed, it's going to be pretty much the same list. But let's say you get a year down the line and you haven't done your second batch screen yet, that could be different based on like new donors. So I'm just going to look for anyone that has any generosity details. And then I'm just going to select OK. So this is going to show me 142 constituents that have those generosity details. So your filter section in the top is always going to help whittle your pool down into who you want to see. Now, when you add columns, you can say, show me the data for the people that are in my pool. So I'm going to click this gray add column button, and I'm going to search for the same thing. I'm going to search for generosity details. And then I'm going to search, or I'm going to check the boxes for the ones that I want to add. I'm going to add them all. But something that is helpful is adding them in a particular order. The order that you check the boxes in is the order that they will show up left to right in your report. So I am going to start with profile accuracy, annual fund likelihood, major gift likelihood, has business affiliation, and then I want to see wealth capacity and largest charitable gift. You can also add your last screen date, but I'm going to skip that one for the sake. Okay, so these are all those donor search fields included in the batch screen. Just keep in mind, this is my demo database. So a lot of this is only going to show like low, or largest charitable transaction is going to be 0. You are going to have a wealth of information in there. These are just all of my fake people. Okay. So something I like to add in this report too is, yes, this is all my donor search information, but I also like to see what's in my database. So I'm going to add a column for largest transaction date and amount. And then I want to also see lifetime revenue. Now in Bloomerang, you have a difference between raised and revenue. Revenue is going to show you anything that the person has given to you, like check, one-time transaction, etc. So that's actual money delivered to your organization. Okay, so let's take a look at the lines here and see some information side by side. So this top line, we have Mallory Archer. Mallory's largest charitable transaction, largest charitable gift from DonorSearch is 0 to 0. And then the largest transaction to my organization is $1,000. The reason you might see that difference in like largest charitable gift of that being $0. Remember when we just talked about maybe Mallory gave transactions anonymously, or maybe my organization didn't publish an annual report that lists this gift. Could be that DonorSearch just hasn't found it, right? You can always submit your own records to DonorSearch as well. That way they have them updated. Okay, and the other thing too to think about too is timeline. So DonorSearch does get everything from publicly available sources. If your organization's fiscal year is on a calendar year and it ends December 31st, but you don't publish your annual report until April, DonorSearch is going to need time to find and update that. So expect a little bit of a lag, right? Because not everything is as immediately accessible as we might be used to with technology, right? They need time to find that record. You need time to publish that report, that giving history. So nothing too crazy here. This is just showing a comparison of all the batch screen information and some just important big metrics. So we're just going to save this and call it master batch screen details. And now we're going to go to our second report here. Again, we're going to start from a blank constituent report. Now, just a reminder that we're looking for cumulative giving history, so that's why we're going into a constituent report rather than looking for individual transactions. And by habit, I'm going to remove all those contact fields because we don't need them for right now. All that stuff can be re-added at any time if you guys decide that you want to re-add that later. So we talked a lot about engagement level. A reminder that this is that rating from all the data that you have in your database. We're going to look for hot and on fire because we want to see people who are really engaged. And then we're going to add a filter for generosity score. Now we're going to do this through the and button. The reason for that is when your filters are adjacent to one another, it means both of those things need to be true in order for them to populate on the list. That is my little philosophy lesson for today. I don't have much more up my sleeve for that one. But generosity is going to be hot and on fire. So again, engagement level is hot or on fire. Generosity is hot and on fire. These people really love your organization, and DonorSearch says that they have the capacity to give. So we've got 3 people here. We're going to add some columns to see some information. Now I'm going to add engagement and generosity. They tell us different things. I want to see what they're telling us for each person. So we're going to put this generosity, engagement level, and then we're going to go add some generosity details. So for this one, remember we're building a major gift prospects report. So we want to see things like major gift likelihood. I want to see profile accuracy because I want to make sure that the information for these people is like solid information. I want to see their wealth capacity. And then let's see their largest charitable gift. Has business affiliation too. That can be important if someone's a business owner. They may have capacity to give a little bit more than a traditional person. So let's add all of these columns. And then this one, I'm going to group this report by generosity. So I want to see all the people who have the most capacity in one section and all the people who have the next highest capacity in the next section. So I'm going to click on my column header and say group by this column. And then I'm going to select OK. So this gives me Jay Love in my on fire section and James Gordon, Wayne Robbins in my hot section. So the reason I like to group reports, again, this can be that prioritization, that segmentation that we talked about. Hopefully in your database, you're going to have a lot more than just 3 people, right? But let's say you get 300 in this group. How do you prioritize who your 5 major gifts officers are going to talk to first? Who are they going to approach? Who do you need to meet in the next 3 months? So this is a great tool for kind of segmentation. So you're not just looking at a giant mass of data in an Excel sheet and being like, I'm picking straws on who to talk to first, right? I would recommend for something like this, talk to people with the most capacity. And then grouping by the column allows you to do that. And you can group by a column and then organize by another one if you wanted to, which we'll do that in just a second. So we have all those DonorSearch batch screen details in here. I also want to see some Bloomerang information. So I want to see what's actually in my database, what they've for sure contributed to my organization. So I'm going to look for largest transaction date and amount. And then I want to see lifetime revenue. And then I'm going to select OK. So let's look at our top line here. This is Jay Love. His largest charitable gift in a single transaction is $5,000. And what he gave us, his largest transaction amount, is also $5,000. So that is great, kind of matches on par what he's giving to us. Let's pretend that we have something in this column here for our second person, for James Gordon. And let's say his largest charitable gift says he's given $25,000. But to us, he's only given $5,000 in a single transaction, right? That might be one where you're like, okay, he has shown to give larger amounts to other organizations. Let's figure out how we can get him a little bit more involved or a little bit more invested in our mission. Let's start having touch points with him, ultimately to secure a larger gift. So again, this is a great starting point for major gift prospects. But don't take the human element out of that. Don't mind my report name. All right. So our next one we're going to look at is we're going to look at a cultivation list. So same thing, constituent report. We're going to build that from scratch and remove all of our columns in here for that constituent contact information. Now, the cultivation list that we talked about, the purpose of this cultivation list is going to be to uncover people in your database that already have that capacity that maybe aren't quite as engaged with you. So this time we're going to look for an engagement level that is low. So we're going to look for cold and cool. And then we're going to join a filter with our and button and look for generosity. But this time we still want to see those high generosity people. So we're going to look hot and on fire. And I've got 2 people here. I hope you have more than 2. But again, this is just my fake demo database for the purpose of this Bloomerang Academy class. So you're going to have more than 2 people there. So this is our cultivation list, right? So for some reason, they're not quite as engaged with their organization. DonorSearch is saying they have capacity. So let's look for their generosity rating. And then let's look for their engagement level. And then let's go add some generosity details to that. Again, you only have access to this generosity details if you complete a batch screen. So that's that one-time scan of X amount of people in your database. And to do the batch screen, they have to have a first name, last name, and valid US address. So I'm going to add that annual fund likelihood. I'm going to add their major gift likelihood. I want to see their largest charitable gift, profile accuracy, and wealth capacity. I'm going to add all of those columns. And this time I'm going to group by engagement level. So I want to see people that are maybe the most engaged. Now, they're both cool rated engaged, right? But likely in your database, you're going to see people that are cool and you're going to see people that are cold. Again, this is going back to that segmentation, that prioritization. I would prioritize people who are rated cool because they're just a touch more engaged with your organization than the ones that are rated cold. So the cultivation list is a great place to start when deciding how to cultivate these people. So let's look at Jimmy Olsen. His generosity is hot. His annual fund likelihood is average, and his major gift likelihood is average. His profile accuracy is low, and his wealth capacity is between 50,000 and 99,000. His largest charitable gift is 0. So DonorSearch hasn't found any individual records for that person saying like, okay, he's given $5,000 or $1,200 to XYZ organization. So just looking at the data, if I'm making an objective decision right now, I might say, okay, let's just cultivate him towards our annual fund. Let's get him a little bit more invested in our organization, in our mission, and then we'll kind of see where we're at once he starts having some giving patterns, some transactions with our organization. Jerry Seinfeld, his generosity is on fire. And let's say, let's pretend his major gift likelihood is rated above average. So his annual fund likelihood is below average. His major gift is above average. So this might be one that I say, let's start prioritizing him towards that major gift pipeline. And then that could be a way of let's delineate who we're cultivating towards certain things, depending on the bandwidth of your organization, right? You can say, hey, Joe, you're a major gifts officer. Let's start talking to Jerry. Hey, Ann, you're working on the annual fund this year. Let's start talking to Jimmy. One thing I wanted to note about the largest charitable gift column, when you do that with DonorSearch, like a batch screen, this one is the same where it says $5,000 to $5,000. So that means, okay, DonorSearch found somewhere that he gave $5,000 to an organization. You might also see ranges in this data, like 5,000 to 9,999. So that might be that an organization published an annual report and he's just published in a section with ranges. So that could be that they didn't tie a specific amount back to him, but he gave somewhere within that range. All right, so we're going to save this report. And in your Bloomerang database, you have the option to create reports either from scratch or starting from a template. So for the next 2 reports, we're going to start from a template. So these ones are going to be a little bit quicker. So for this one, I want to look at people in my database that only have 1 transactions. So this is going to be the one-time donors template. So they have at most 1 transaction in the database. And what I'm going to add in terms of my columns, and actually before I add that, I want to make sure these people have generosity details. So we're going to look for, we're going to click that green and button, search for generosity details, and then we're going to select OK. I'm also going to switch this report from household back to constituent. The reason for that is DonorSearch is looking for that information on an individual basis. So they may scan the husband in one record, they may scan the wife in another record. They don't just do households. So to make that data a little bit more accurate, I want to see that in a constituent-based report. You can always add information for households later and compare this. So this isn't something that you're going to just go, okay, these are individuals. I'm sending out my solicitation for $5,000. These are people you're going to look into a little bit deeper. So you can see if they're in a household or not and cultivate that way. But for the sake of accurate data representation, I always switch stuff back to constituent level if I'm looking on the basis of generosity information. So I'm going to add a couple of columns. Again, I just want to add that generosity score. I want to add that engagement level. And then I'm going to go back to that generosity details section. And I'm going to add annual fund, major gift likelihood, largest charitable gift. Okay, so let's look at a line or two of this data. So Carl Winslow, I've got Carl here at low under major gift likelihood, and annual fund likelihood is below average. Technically, low is lower than below average. So I might cultivate him towards the annual fund. And pretty similar patterns here. Like, let's look at this line. We've got John Jonah Jameson. Say that 5 times fast. It's a long one. And annual fund likelihood, we've got average. And then major gift likelihood, we have below average. So again, I'm going to cultivate this John Jonah Jameson Jr. Towards that annual fund pipeline. Get him more involved in the organization in general. All right. We're going to head over to our last report here. And again, this one's going to start from a template. This is going to be our first time donors. Sure, actually up here. It's going to be our newest donors template. This is looking for individuals, but I am going to switch this back to constituents. Now, again, this is my donor demo database. We're still going to build out some fields for this, but I'm not going to have actually, some results, but the report is valuable. Okay, so the first transaction, and actually we might get some more results in here. What I'm going to do is I want to see any first-time donors to my organization in the last year and see if any of those people have any generosity details. So let's say date is in the previous 90 days. We're going to open up that filter, change this back to 365, and then I'm going to select OK. And I've got one person. This is awesome. Again, you're likely going to have more than one person, so you'll have a bit more data to look at. So I am going to go add their generosity score and engagement level. And then we're going to jump right into those generosity details. So we are going to add major gift likelihood, annual fund likelihood, profile accuracy, and let's do largest charitable gift. Okay, not a lot of data in there. That's totally fine. It likely just means that she wasn't included in that batch screen. But again, depending on when you do this, these reports are dynamic. So I can open up this report in, let's say, 2 months, after I've already completed another batch screen, you'll have those details. She'll still be in there as a first-time donor if it's within the time range that you're looking for. So we've added those Bloomerang fields in there. Let's add a few, or we've added the donor search. Let's add a few Bloomerang. So let's look at our lifetime revenue. Largest transaction date and amount. Now, Brooke is a first-time donor. Within the last year, she certainly could have had more than one transaction between January and August. It is just the same, so she's only had one transaction. And her lifetime revenue is $1,000 or $100. So this is a place where you can see, as long as you have data in there for annual fund likelihood, major gift likelihood, profile accuracy, largest charitable gift. This is a place where you can also make that decision for your first-time donors to say, okay, who do we want to cultivate towards that major gift pipeline? Who do we want to cultivate towards the annual fund or just general support? All righty. So that leads me to the end of my reporting section. Again, a lot of great places for you to jump off and kind of work towards cultivating, segmenting, prioritizing who you're asking for and what. Some ways you can do this is like making sure the people that are your major gift prospects are getting those special event invites. Annual fund people, if you're trying to prioritize who to send your mailer out to at certain times of year, that's a great use case for reports like your annual fund support or your cultivation list. Things like that can help you actually use the data from your batch screen and furthermore the data during your well screening to really utilize the data you have in your database and segment the people in there. So I will turn it back over to Diana, who will see what questions we have.
Thank you so much, Kirst. That was a lot of great information. I know it can be overwhelming for folks. I know a lot of you said in the beginning that you may not even know what level of donor search you have and you're not fully utilizing it yet, but I hope this gives you a good starting point. And don't be overwhelmed by all the reports we showed you. These are great starting points that we recommend. You don't have to do all of them. Also, you will get access to this recording, so you can try to recreate these reports in your database later on. Speaking of the reports, Kirst, we had a question here from Deborah around, they're usually used to running reports by household. What is the difference and why are we running these reports by constituent?
Yeah, so to run them, like DonorSearch is looking for wealth information, charitable giving information on an individual basis. So if you are used to running them on households, like you can still do that technically, but the generosity information will be a little skewed. So let me reshare my screen here and show you one way that I kind of get around that. So let's say batch screen details. Here, I'm going to add a column for household name. And we don't have a lot of people in the household. But again, this is my demo database. You're going to have more data in there. And I'm going to group by this column. So what that would do is it will put the people like Signorellis, Melissa, and Rob in the same household of the Signorellis. So this is a way where you can look at both of their batch screen data and go from there, right? And this isn't something that you have to base all your solicitations off of. It's a good starting point for kind of researching that family. But it is run on the individual level, which is why I always kind of default to when I'm using that as a perspective segmentation piece to kind of going back to on an individual constituent basis.
Wonderful. And can you recap? We had a question earlier that sometimes it's a point of confusion when the generosity score doesn't match the engagement level. Can you recap the difference between the two and how they might be different?
Yeah. So the generosity score is going to be DonorSearch's rating of their propensity to give a particular gift. So in particular, a major gift. So DonorSearch is looking at any publicly available giving records for that person. Your engagement score is the information that's in your database. So that's going to be affected by the number of transactions they have, the kind of interactions they have, their communication preferences. So not just transactional stuff in your database. So if DonorSearch is saying, okay, they're very, like they've got a very high DonorSearch rating, but a low engagement score, that's showing they have capacity to give, but they don't have a lot of engagement in your organization. So it's not always, they don't have to match, right? It's normal that they won't match because they're telling you different things. So think of DonorSearch information as anything that's publicly available, which may or may not include your organization. And then the engagement score is going to be just what's tracked in your database, not only transactions too, right? Whether that's communication preferences, if they've upgraded or downgraded, et cetera. So you can use those two things to look at different areas, different segments of people, right? Because they're telling you different things when you're putting them together in different ways.
Lovely. I am also going to launch a poll. We've had a couple of questions. If you'd like a follow-up about any of the following services. So if you're interested, for example, you don't have DonorSearch yet, and you're interested in any of the add-ons, please let us know. Also, we've gotten questions around additional coaching and additional training. Of course, our support team is always here to help you. It is free to reach out via chat or email. You can have phone support for an additional fee. We have our academy classes, our knowledge base, but we do have our coaches and consultants available as well, if that's something that you would like to explore. And I'll leave that poll up as we answer some more questions here. We have a question. We currently have DonorSearch. How do you find new prospects? Chris, I don't know if we have, this could be a bigger topic, but is there a quick answer to this question?
So finding new prospects. So a couple ways. I mean, mainly it's going to be the online suite of tools, right? So if you're looking for people that are not in your database at all, and you're looking for people who maybe support similar causes, that's something that utilizing that online suite of tools can be very valuable for you, especially if you're in a time at your organization where you're prepping for a capital campaign, or you just have you're building out new infrastructure for XYZ thing, or you're looking for more aggressive support for your programs. So that's something that can help you find new prospects entirely. Now, if you're looking for information in your database and you're like, okay, who's in here that we're really not cultivating, it's possible that you have people in your database already that you have no transactions from for any particular reason, right? So anyone in your database without a transaction, and they have good contact information, that's something I technically consider as a prospect, right? You already have their contact information for some reason. That's someone that you can start cultivating already, that you don't have to like go through any other additional steps to have access to. So cultivate the people in your database, maybe without transactions and good contact information. And then if you're looking for entirely new prospects, that's something the online suite of tools can help you with.
Absolutely. That's why we titled today's class the way we did, because it's all well and good to find new prospects, but you might have some hidden prospects right within your database as well. I just wanted to call out, we had a suggestion here in our chat. You can use your report results to build an engagement plan for people with lower engagement but higher capacity to prep them for the future ask. I love that. Thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing that.
Awesome. Thanks, Deborah.
We have another question here, Kirst. I'm looking at the report templates and have a question. Does the top donors report template rank all the donors in the database, or just say the top 10 or 20?
I'm pretty positive it ranks them all, but you said top donors, correct?
Correct.
So it's the donors ranked by total revenue. It goes by household. So your last 2-year revenue, So it could even have people that don't have transactions. This is going by household. Let me flip this to constituent. So technically it doesn't have them all. That's a great question. Good call out.
So at the basic level, it should be looking for constituents who have giving. So if they are in your database, but they haven't given yet, they won't be in this report. But as long as they have giving that meets those filters, they should be included in that report. And I love that column side by side that shows you if they have revenue over the last 2 years versus what their lifetime revenue is. So it could also even show you, for example, you have folks in this database that have lifetime giving, but it looks like it hasn't been in the last 2 years. So that can give you a clue as well on how you might want to re-engage them, or if you want to re-engage them to give again to get that be more recent. Thank you for that question.
This is a very useful one because it also lists the communication preferences too. So like you have preferred communication channel throughout the database. So it shows you, okay, they do prefer to be contacted by mail. So when you re-engage the Blues who have a high lifetime revenue, do that by mail. It kind of respects their donor preference, and then they're more likely to say, okay, they're listening to what I'm asking from them. A little bit higher opportunity for that re-engagement.
Awesome. Great call out, Kirst. Thank you. We are right about at time. Thank you again, everyone, for being with us today. As a reminder, you will get an email with a link to the recording and the slides and a summary of how many points you earned for CFRE credit for attending today's class. In the meantime, Kirst, do you have any parting words for our friends today?
Just to keep utilizing the data in your database. The only way that you're going to get value out of it is to put good data in there and then uncover how you can use that data. So keep utilizing the resources, keep asking questions. Our support team is phenomenal. If you have some wild idea, you're like, I want to know if Bloomerang can do this thing. I want to see if I can see this report and this, can it show me this thing? Throw it over to our support team, right? Like they're very, very awesome. They're very technical. We're going to do our best to get you what you need to succeed. So keep asking questions and obviously use all this stuff as a jumping off point.
Absolutely. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much, Kirst. We hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you in another Academy class soon. Bye.